It was a chrome-plated empire built on the roar of engines and the promise of restored glory. For nearly a decade, Counting Cars invited millions into the vibrant world of Count's Customs, a Las Vegas dream factory where rusted relics were reborn into automotive masterpieces. But behind the polished paint and the charismatic grin of Danny the Count Coker, a different story was developing. While the cameras rolled on, a dark cloud of legal chaos and internal corruption was gathering, threatening to shut the entire operation down. This is the story of how the show's glittering success was derailed by a terrifying discovery of betrayal. Subscribe and join us as we reveal the hidden truth behind the chrome and the shocking secrets that led to the show's downfall. The world of Counting Cars appeared to be a tightly run operation. Danny Coker presided over his kingdom of classic automobiles with the confidence of a man who had built something real. The show, a spin-off of the mega-hit Pawn Stars allowed viewers to witness the magic of Count's Customs. From the creative clashes with Horny Mike to the meticulous paintwork of Ryan Evans, the team brought vehicles back to life. But a cancer was growing within the business, hidden not in the engine bay but in the financial records. This cancer was a quiet, unassuming figure named Joseph Frontiera, a man hired to manage the company's books. His presence was an invitation for disaster, a ticking bomb that would eventually shatter the shop's carefully constructed image. The dream was about to become a financial nightmare. In 2016, the Count's Customs facade began to crack when the company filed a startling lawsuit. The suit alleged that Joseph Frontiera had stolen more than $75,000 from the company's coffers. The accusations were damning and painted a picture of calculated theft. According to the court documents, Frontiera had used his position of trust for personal gain, allegedly making a down payment on a luxury Range Rover with company money and using business funds to purchase personal airline tickets. He was also accused of failing to pay the company's taxes on time, which resulted in an $18,000 penalty from the Internal Revenue Service. To execute this scheme, it was claimed Frontiera went to the extreme length of having signature stamps made for Coker and other executives to authorize his fraudulent activity in their absence. It was a betrayal of the highest order, a violation of the core trust upon which the business was built. The most infuriating aspect of the discovery was that Frontiera had been a phantom employee. He was barely seen on the show, operating in the shadows, quietly siphoning the lifeblood of the company he was hired to protect. The reality was far more sinister than a simple mistake. A quick background check by Count's Customs revealed that Frontiera had a prior criminal history of embezzlement and fraud from a previous employer in Florida, a detail his recruiting agency had allegedly failed to disclose. The man who was supposed to be safeguarding the shop's finances was a convicted financial predator. As Danny Coker would later reflect, the fallout was severe and the damage was done. The discovery of this hidden conspiracy sent shockwaves through the company. How long had he been stealing? Who else was involved? The hunt for answers was only just beginning, and it pointed to a far more troubling reality that threatened to consume the entire business. The legal battle that followed was not just about recovering money. It was about salvaging a reputation that had taken decades to build. Danny Coker, a man who had poured his soul into every restoration, now had to sit in a courtroom and hear how his trusted employee had systematically dismantled his financial security. The betrayal cut deeper than any loss of revenue. It was personal. It was a violation of the family-like bond that the show had always marketed to its audience. And as the evidence piled up, it became clear that Frontiera had not acted alone in his negligence. He had exploited a system that was built on trust, not suspicion. The garage that had once been a sanctuary of creativity now felt like a crime scene, and every signature, every invoice, every handshake was suddenly under scrutiny. The revelation of Joseph Frontiera's alleged embezzlement did more than just cause financial damage. It created a psychological earthquake within Count's Customs. The entire team, a group that had prided itself on being a tight-knit family, was now plagued by suspicion and doubt. If the quiet accountant could be a thief, what secrets were others hiding? The fear that had once been reserved for a complex restoration was now replaced by the terror of broken trust. The cameras, which had always captured laughter and passion, now documented a crew that was looking over its shoulders. The dream was cracking, and the cracks were spreading faster than anyone could repair. The damage extended far beyond the embezzled funds. The lawsuit against Frontera dragged Counts Customs through the mud of public legal battles. The media reported on the scandal, and the internet, fueled by a lack of official statements, exploded with wild theories. One of the most persistent and harmful rumors was that Ryan Evans, the beloved and respected head painter, was the one who had stolen the money. This rumor, which Danny Coker later vehemently denied, was a devastating consequence of the real crime. Coker called Evans his brother, a friend and colleague he had worked with for over 2 decades. The fact that the innocent Evans could be mistaken for the true culprit, Joseph Frontera, shows how the chaos threatened to destroy the shop's reputation and relationships. The terrifying discovery had created a web of lies that snared the innocent. As the legal proceedings continued, more details emerged, confirming the depth of Frontera's deceit. He had allegedly used company money to create stamp signatures and absconded with funds for personal use. The company's decision to pursue legal action was a desperate attempt to regain control and send a message that such betrayal would not be tolerated. In 2019, Joseph Frontera was ordered to pay Counts Customs over $40,000 in damages. But the victory was hollow. The money was gone, the trust was shattered, and the public image of the show was severely tarnished. This internal war had a profound cost. With the show's future now precarious, the Count and his team faced the terrifying realization that the biggest threat to their legacy didn't come from a rival shop, but from within their own walls. The emotional toll on the crew was immeasurable. Horny Mike, who had always been the loud, eccentric heart of the shop, became quieter. Ryan Evans, whose artistry had defined the show's visual identity, found himself defending his name against whispers that were never true. Even Danny Coker, the unshakable leader, began to question the people around him. The shop that had once been a sanctuary of chrome and creativity now felt like a fortress under siege. Friendships were tested, loyalties were questioned, and the joy of restoring classic cars was replaced by the grim task of restoring a broken reputation. The silence between takes on set became louder than any engine roar. And when the cameras finally stopped rolling, the weight of what had been lost settled over the garage like a heavy fog. The conclusion of the Frontera legal battle did not signal a new beginning. Instead, it marked the beginning of the end. As the scandal faded from the headlines, a more profound silence began to envelop the show. In December 2021, after a successful run of 10 seasons, Counting Cars quietly stopped production without any official cancellation announcement from the History Channel. The roaring engines that had once filled the air fell silent, leaving only the deafening echo of unanswered questions. It was an ending so muted that it felt more like a disappearance than a conclusion, leaving fans searching for clues in the rearview mirror. A string of high-profile departures added to the mystery. Early on, project manager Scott Jones, a commanding presence in the first 2 seasons, abruptly left the show. While some fans theorized he was fired or embroiled in the financial scandal, official sources suggest he simply moved to Tennessee to start his own business and raise his son. Then, Rolly Sobo, the charismatic head detailer beloved for his energetic persona, also vanished from the show. He alluded to a long story behind his departure, hinting at behind-the-scenes drama that was never shown on camera. The crew that had once been a staple of Las Vegas television was dispersing like dust in the desert wind. Simultaneously, the show was plagued by customer disputes that threatened its credibility. One notable case involved Jeanette and Paul Hurt, a couple who sued Counts Customs for a botched restoration on a 1967 Mustang. They claimed the project had ballooned from an initial $11,000 estimate to a staggering $50,000 with no completed car or television appearance. These lawsuits painted a picture of a business in turmoil, one that was struggling to meet its promises even as the cameras rolled. With the reality of the show becoming less appealing, network officials had to face a difficult decision. The financial chaos, the cast departures, and the legal battles had created an environment that was unsustainable for continued production. But it wasn't just the lawsuits that drained the life from the show. The magic that had once captivated audiences had faded. Viewers who had tuned in to watch rust buckets transform into rolling art now saw a different Picturia business fighting for survival. A crew that no longer smiled the same way, and a leader whose eyes held more exhaustion than excitement. The behind-the-scenes drama had finally bled onto the screen, and the audience could feel it. Ratings dipped, interest waned, and the network began to look elsewhere for content. The show that had once been a crown jewel of automotive television was now a liability. And so, without a grand farewell or a final episode, Counting Cars simply stopped. The garage doors closed, the cameras were packed away, and the silence that followed was louder than any engine ever was. While the show was collapsing under the weight of internal betrayal and legal woes, a final, terrifying discovery was made that clarified the true extent of the threat facing Danny Coker and his legacy. The Count's Customs empire was under attack by an invisible enemy. Sophisticated scammers, creating ghost-like imitations of Coker online, were using his name and image to defraud unsuspecting fans and clients. This was the final blow. While the front door of the business was being wrecked by Frontiera's betrayal, the back door was being left wide open by internet criminals. These online imposters would steal photos and videos from Count's Customs social media and use them to create convincing fake profiles of Danny Coker. They would then contact his real followers, pretending to be him, and convince them to send money for deposits on custom work or other fraudulent deals. Coker himself was horrified by the scheme, stating that he had no personal social media and would never ask for money online. It was a terrifying realization for the shop owner. His reputation, built over a lifetime of work, was being weaponized against his own fans. The people who had supported him for years were now being victimized by criminals wearing his digital mask. This final discovery perfectly illustrated the collapse of the dream the show had sold. While the cameras focused on the spectacular builds, the real world was a far more dangerous place filled with stolen money, broken trust, and identity theft. The team had worked so hard to create a positive image, only to have it be exploited by criminals. The story of Counting Cars is not just about the rise and fall of a TV show, but a sobering look at how the American dream can be corrupted. As the dust settles on the garage floor, one question remains for those who invested years in the show. Can the legacy of this shop ever truly be restored, or will the ghosts of its past always lurk in the shadows? The scammers were relentless. They used Coker's image to create fake giveaways, phony charity appeals, and bogus investment opportunities. Some victims lost hundreds of dollars, others lost thousands. Each new complaint was a knife in the heart of the Count's Customs brand. Coker and his team spent countless hours working with law enforcement and social media platforms to take down these fraudulent accounts, but for every one they removed, two more appeared. It was a war they could not win, a battle against shadows that had no face. The irony was devastating. A man who had spent his life building a reputation of honesty and craftsmanship was now being destroyed by liars who wore his face. And the audience, once loyal and trusting, now had to second-guess every message, every offer, every promise that came from the name they had loved. As the years passed and the show faded from the spotlight, Danny Coker and his remaining crew faced the hardest question of all. What was left of the dream? Count's Customs still operated, but it was a shadow of its former television glory. The shop that had once been flooded with cameras, celebrities, and hopeful customers now functioned quietly, focusing on high-end restorations without the pressure of weekly episodes. The silence allowed for reflection, and reflection brought pain. Coker, a man who had never shied away from a challenge, now had to confront the reality that his life's work had been tarnished by forces he could not control. The legacy of Counting Cars is complicated. For millions of fans, it remains a cherished memory of craftsmanship and camaraderie. The show inspired a generation of young mechanics and artists who dreamed of restoring classic cars. It showcased the beauty of American automotive history and brought the culture of customization into living rooms across the world. But for those who worked behind the scenes, the show will always be a reminder of what happens when trust is broken and greed takes root. The story of Joseph Frontiera is not just a cautionary tale about hiring practices. It is a warning about the fragility of success and the speed with which it can be undone. Danny Coker has spoken sparingly about the ordeal, but when he does, his words carry the weight of a man who has seen his empire crumble. He has acknowledged the mistakes, the oversight, and the naivety that allowed Frontiera to operate unchecked. But he has also expressed gratitude for the loyal fans who stood by him through the darkness. The shop continues to build cars, and Coker continues to appear at events and conventions, but the fire that once burned so brightly has dimmed. The dream is no longer about fame or fortune. It is about survival and redemption. And yet, even in the quiet aftermath, there is a glimmer of hope. The team at Counts Customs has implemented stricter financial controls, background checks, and oversight measures to ensure that no frontierer can ever infiltrate their ranks again. They have rebuilt their reputation one customer at a time, focusing on quality over quantity, trust over spectacle. The show may be gone, but the spirit of the garage lives on in every car that rolls out of the shop. The ghosts of the past may linger, but they no longer control the future. Danny Coker and his crew have learned the hardest lesson of all, that true success is not measured in ratings or revenue, but in the integrity of the work and the strength of the bonds that survive the storm. The story of Counting Cars is one of spectacular triumph and heartbreaking failure. It began as a celebration of automotive art and the American spirit, introducing us to a cast of characters who felt like family. But from the terrifying discovery of Joseph Frontier's embezzlement to the quiet exodus of cast members, the show became a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked success and the hidden costs of reality television. Counts Customs remains open for business, a testament to Danny Coker's resilience, but the television series is gone. The dream, it seems, was a beautiful lie. What do you think happened to Counting Cars ? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into the shows you love. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.